In March 2003, a coalition of military forces pushed into Baghdad. It took exactly 3 weeks to secure the capital. The invasion culminated in a highly publicized moment in a central square, as heavy machinery pulled down the massive bronze likeness of the Iraqi president. The primary justification given to the global public for this military action was the claim of hidden weapons of mass destruction. But as troops scoured the country and inspected suspected sites, they found nothing. The rapid collapse of the government left a massive political vacuum in its wake. Without the promised stockpiles of chemical or biological weapons to display, the coalition looked for a tangible victory to present to the international community. Capturing the man who had ruled the country for decades became the absolute top priority. Tanks and airstrikes had easily overwhelmed the national army. However, tracking down one individual hiding within his own borders required a different set of tools. Overwhelming firepower was useless for solving a localized intelligence problem. To organize the manhunt, military leadership created a deck of playing cards. They populated it with the 52 most wanted figures of the old regime, assuming that, by targeting high-ranking politicians and family members, they would eventually find the leader. To speed up the process, the U.S. attached massive financial bounties to these targets. The strategy was to use financial pressure to buy intelligence, offering upwards of $25 million to anyone willing to hand over actionable information. 4 months in, the money triggered a tip. An informant directed troops to a mansion in Mosul sheltering Saddam's 2 sons, Uday and Qusay. The resulting firefight destroyed the house and killed both brothers, but it provided zero intelligence on their father's actual location. Elite task forces spent months conducting hundreds of destructive, dead-end raids. While they successfully apprehended numerous former officials from the playing cards, interrogators hit a wall. These captured politicians simply did not know where their former boss was hiding. The multi-million-dollar manhunt stalled out. The coalition command had based their search on the assumption that political rank correlated with physical location. A staff sergeant and interrogator named Eric Maddox began looking at the data differently. He identified a critical flaw in the coalition's tracking logic. The officials on the playing cards were men whose authority was granted by the president. They relied on him. But right now, the dynamic was reversed. The fugitive didn't need politicians. He needed people capable of keeping him hidden. Maddox started mapping out concentric circles of protection. Before the invasion, the personal security apparatus was split into 3 tiers. Maddox bypassed the outer layers of palace guards and focused exclusively on the existence of the innermost elite layer. To find them, Maddox directed his attention to the city of Tikrit, targeting the Al-Muslit tribe. This single extended family had historically supplied the vast majority of these elite inner-circle bodyguards. By abandoning the macro-political manhunt in favor of a highly localized tribal investigation, the interrogations immediately began producing results. One name surfaced repeatedly: Mohammed Ibrahim Omar al-Muslit. He was a trusted inner-circle bodyguard who had taken charge of coordinating and funding the local resistance against coalition forces. Tracking him down required pulling a specific thread. Maddox interrogated one of Ibrahim's nephews. That conversation revealed the locations of 2 business associates, who in turn gave up the name of Ibrahim's driver. The driver then provided the location of Ibrahim's own son. The son wasn't involved in the resistance, but he offered a seemingly trivial memory. He mentioned that he used to go fishing with his father at a specific pond in the nearby city of Samarra. Troops raided the fish farm, securing intelligence that pointed to a distant uncle's apartment in Baghdad. Special forces breached the building and found Ibrahim hiding in plain sight inside a city the coalition had controlled for months. A fragile sequence of memories and specific tribal links had accomplished what billion-dollar satellites and massive military sweeps could not. On a December night in the rural farming village of Ad-Dawar, the streetlights abruptly plunged into total pitch-black darkness. Hundreds of soldiers immediately began sweeping through the town. Guided by a captive Ibrahim, the troops searched 2 unassuming farmhouses near the Tigris River. They cleared every room and checked every outbuilding, but the target was nowhere to be found. The soldiers were ready to abandon the search. Ibrahim clearly knew the location, but he appeared unwilling to verbally betray his former boss. Instead of speaking, he walked outside and silently kicked at a piece of rope half buried in the dirt. Soldiers dug into the ground, uncovering a hidden trapdoor covered in styrofoam. After pulling back the cover and preparing to drop a grenade inside, they stopped. Two hands reached up from the darkness, followed by a frail, bearded man who surrendered immediately. It took an international coalition, tens of thousands of troops, and billions of dollars in military spending to find the president of Iraq cowering in a tiny dirt pit. For decades, the Iraqi people lived under a carefully manufactured, godlike persona. State-controlled media and brutal oppression had built an image that demanded absolute submission. Immediately following the raid, the U.S. military made a calculated decision. They invited global journalists to physically tour the farm in Ad-Dor, ensuring the international press could document the miserable conditions of the underground spider hole. They then released video of the captive undergoing routine medical and dental examinations. The footage was broadcast worldwide, showcasing a disoriented, unkempt man having his hair checked for lice and his mouth inspected with a flashlight. Support for the occupation was already dropping. By heavily publicizing these specific, humiliating details, the coalition worked to erode the myth of the untouchable leader. Extracting the man from the ground was only half the objective. The true strategic victory lay in weaponizing his capture, using the imagery to permanently destroy a dictator's narrative.